And I vividly remember walking into every car dealership in the tri-state area, literally. And I would put, as a prop, Dave, the briefcase on the owner's desk to show him or her, I have a briefcase. So this is worth your time because I have a briefcase. I didn't have anything in the briefcase. It was a total bluff.
Dave Bolger here, and welcome to Had I Known, conversations with interesting members of the Hamilton College community. This week's guest is Justin Ginsberg, class of 2004. Hey, welcome back for another one. Good to talk to you again. And good to be doing this again. Another fun and interesting conversation with a member of the Hamilton community. And now it's a long list of impressive, accomplished individuals that I've talked to. And rarely do I get nervous. What makes me nervous is when I feel like I'm going to get judged for the way I sound. And this week was one of those times. Why? Because the guy I talked to sounds like this.
Live from the Bristol Campus Center, it's Justinio on the radio. Brought to you by Bon Appetit Fine Dining Services. Visit their website at bamco.com and by Barnes & Noble Bookstores. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the guy who gives away plenty of free stuff and gets absolutely nothing in return, if you know what I mean. Justinio on the radio.
If you were on campus in the early 2000s, you may recognize Justinio on the radio. Justin Ginsberg, this week's guest. Now, you put that vintage WHCL clip up against the clips I played for you. Whew. That's a professional. And in fact, he was a professional. As you'll hear, Justin Ginsberg, Justinio, turned his WHCL gig and sounding like that into a business. Turned into a business on campus, and then took that business and grew it to what it is today as onhold.com, one of the premier on-hold messaging and music services in the country. As you'll hear, Justin started the business from his room in North, servicing one client in Clinton, and has grown the business over 20 years, having now serviced 10,000 plus clients. It's an incredible story. Justin shares the origin stories of his on-hold business, the challenges he had to overcome in building and creating the business, lessons learned along the way, and what role Hamilton College and WHCL played in his success. So, if you've ever called a business and been put on hold, there's a good chance Justin is behind the experience. I did have to apologize to Justin for likely cursing at him more than once in my life while being on hold. So if you're interested in hearing the origin story of a successful business from Hamilton College, if you were on campus from 2000 to 2004, you want to catch up with the voice of WHCL, or if you just want to hear a fun chat with an interesting guy, here's your chance. Here is Justin Ginsberg, class of 2004.
You know, pleasure to do this, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it. You know, I talk to a lot of people here, and rarely do I get self-conscious or nervous. But you know, hearing the radio clips you sent me and doing a little digging into your work, I don't know, a lot of pressure on, you know, talking to a sound guy, talking to an audio guy.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think there should be any pressure. I listened to some of your podcasts, and I got to tell you, it's all about the intro and exit music, right?
Much love for Doc Woods.
He's great.
Although, I don't know, it's part of your fur. I think, you know, I might have need to get some tips from you on how to punch this up and make it sound better.
Would be happy to help out in any way that we can. we could sponsor. We can.
All right. There we go. So yeah, I'm interested to dig into an interesting career. I talk about this is a podcast about talking to interesting members of the community, and you've got quite the story.
Yeah, no, I mean I really have such incredible, humble feelings and a soft spot in my heart for Hamilton. Because of really the steps that kind of came together that allowed me to go on the journey that I'm on right now, and I continue to be on. It started in, the freshman year in North Dormitory, right beside the library there.
How'd you end up at Hamilton?
I ended up at Hamilton. I looked at a lot of the NESCACs. It was just a beautiful spot. Beautiful spot. We did the whole tour, and I applied early decision, and they accepted. I for whatever reason they said come aboard and join us, and I've never thought twice about that decision. I mean, just an absolutely gorgeous place. It's like a utopia. It truly is. Like, and you walk on that campus, and this was pre walking around with cell phones and it was just the coming of age of that, and everyone knew everyone. You knew everyone as you walk across campus. Sometimes you'd take your bike across campus, and it was just a great place to, I knew that I wanted a small school so that I might be able to dabble in different things. And Hamilton was just a great fit. And, never regretted that decision. Not for 1 second. That's
great. Those, pre-cell phone days, text messaging was writing a message on someone's whiteboard on the door and hope they see it.
Believe it or not. Yeah, it's true. Remember, I don't know. So I remember when we were at Hamilton at the time that I was at Hamilton, it was almost like you wouldn't really be caught on Martin's Way with your cell phone, because that's kind of like cell phones were kind of there, it was like the bumping from pagers into cell phone. And you really wouldn't be caught because it was like, it was a no. Something tells me that's not the case right now, right?
Right. Yeah, I
couldn't walk on Martin's Way without some sort of an Apple Pay or something, right?
Right. I predate you by a few years. I was gone for a few years before you got there, so they weren't even. They were a thing, but no one had them. And it's just I marvel at that idea that you wrote a message on someone's door. We're going, here, and maybe they saw it, maybe not. And how did we make plans? How did we meet? We used to drive I played rugby. We used to drive all over upstate New York to play games. How the hell did we get directions?
So it's true. One of the keys, I don't want to say the keys to kind of where I am now is I just had a kind of a skill of developing relationships with random people from the guy who managed the IT for the whole school, the phone system lady, and just random, and he actually called me from the IT department. They said, we want to try something out. You live right, I was living in North, right beside the library. We want to try something out called wireless internet. And he's like, you live right there. We're kind of setting it up in the library. We're going to give you this card with this long antenna on top of my, laptop. And I had to like schlep this thing over to the library. And he's like, let us know how it works, and I was a part of a small like sample of 5 students or whatever it was to give it a try. And again, something tells me that's a little different now, right? So that was the only spot on campus at the time that had Wi-Fi, and he was like, he had to reassure this is safe, this is secure, this is,
Man, it's funny. That's funny. So you get to school and at some point make a bit of a name for yourself on the airwaves at WHCL. Did you know that was something you wanted to do? And when you got there?
No, it really wasn't. It wasn't, I was attracted to, and the certain segment of your listeners will know, I was attracted to the basement of Bristol with the neon and the WHCL, the studio as we remember it, right?
Sure.
Which it's different now. I suspect, and I know.
There's actually windows now. You can actually see outside into the world now. Yeah.
Would you believe? But I was attracted to a variety. I was active in the comedy troupe, Bobby Peru at the time, that I was on Hamilton, on the Hill. And the radio station was something I remember freshman year, they were having they're having a meeting at the radio station. Oh, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll go listen. Sure, I'll have a show on the radio. And it was just a lot of fun. And when I was down in the basement of Bristol, that's when I felt alive. That is when I found my passion it was like an artistic passion. And I'm not an artist, but there was something about the creating of my 1 hour Justinio on the radio, as it was called. That program was when I felt really alive. I would spend hours at night and in the morning, producing, and it was a highly produced show at the time. In terms of all kinds of promos and this and that and all the other. And I taught myself how to edit audio. I taught myself with the limited tools that I had available, how to create something that layering audio and fading and all kinds of different, audio engineering tricks, which I had zero background in. And it was like I was putting on this performance each week that was part comedy, part serious, and part artistic, because I wanted it to sound really, really good. Like just listening to it back then, I'm pretty sure some people had actual radios, and it was like, it was a lot of fun. And we would invite all kinds of guests on the show. I remember the start of it was I invited the people who ran the food service. Who knew that food service gets to the heart of the stomach of everyone on that campus? Administrator, and I had them on the show as this big interview. I developed a great relationship, and I worked with them for the remaining 4 years, the rest of my time at Hamilton. And so I would be able to give out bonus meals and give out all kinds of fun things. And that allowed me to leverage that and say, okay, well, I've had them on. Now let's ask the bookstore, had them on. Then I asked the president at the time, Eugene Tobin, remember him?
Sure.
And then started going down the line, had the mayor of Utica, became very close and friendly with him. And he, and so we, did programming at Turning Stone Casino, where we had the head, the head of their organization, on the radio. So it became this thing that we would have people call in and, win prizes and all kinds of things. And I vividly remember the time the woman who ran the phone system on campus called me the next day and said, listen, and they call me Justinio. It's kind of funny. They said, Justinio, you can't do that to us anymore. You nearly crashed this campus phone system with the volume of calls that were calling in and doing all kinds of things. And I was just having fun with it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah, well, I think you put any bit of production into a show on WHCL, and from the clips I've heard, you certainly did, and it sounded as professional as anything else probably going out over the airwaves in Central New York. You do that, and it really stands out. I mean, I used to joke that the number one played song on WHCL was Dead Air, because we weren't always the best at training DJs back then, So I imagine it caught on just because it sounded. I
mean, we had all kinds of fun guests. We had a mime on once. We brought in a mime, and it was obviously the whole thing was a joke. We had a balloon animal. Someone doing balloon animals. People would call in, ask for something, and all you would hear was like, But we tackled some tough topics. We also had a lot of fun with it, and I guess to continue the path of my journey. I became the production manager of the station at the time. Best part was that corner office, when you walk into the left, had free long distance calling. That's it was at the time that was a big deal. I'm dating myself, but that was a big thing. I had my high school sweetheart, who I'm married to right now, and she's I had to call her at Ithaca College, where she went. So
And it was quiet and private, and
It was fabulous. It was like my own little study space. It was like my own, it was great.
Sure.
I did the promos. I did the any commercials or public service announcement, because at the time I was the voice of the radio station, right? And a gentleman who owns at the time, the O'Connor's Alexander Hamilton Inn right there down in Clinton. Patrick O'Connor called me up and said, "Hey, Justinio," he knew me. He was a guest. "Justinio, can you do our on hold commercial?" And I paused, and I had no idea, right? I had no idea what an on hold commercial was. And I said, "Let me call you right back. I'm in the middle of something, but I'll call you back in 10 minutes. And I was in the middle, Dave, of looking up what an on hold commercial was. And I called him up and I said, "Yeah, I could do this." Now, what it is it's the message that you hear when you're placed on hold with music, and you produce it. It's kind of that on hold commercial, right? You get callers to a pizzeria, or in this case, the inn. And I called him back and I said, "Great, I could do that for you." And he said, "Fantastic. How much?" Now, again, it was all a bluff. I had no idea how much I was charging him. And he actually had no idea how much to pay. And so it was like the perfect equilibrium of
interesting stare down. Yeah.
I threw out a number. He said, "Great, I'll need this updated every month," because they would do a Valentine's Day dinner. They would do a Mother's Day. They would do all kinds of special events. They used to do a big Halloween thing. And
so this is someone calls the inn, gets put on hold, and this is an opportunity to upsell them, bring them in, make them aware of other things that the inn has going on.
That's exactly it. From fine dining to, they had a number of rooms upstairs. They had a pub downstairs. It's no longer in that capacity. In fact, I still am in touch with the people that, in fact, I called Pat yesterday just to reach out to say, because I'm deeply grateful for the people that have kind of put in place, allowing me to go down the path that I'm on. And I don't take any of it for granted. A lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance, and a lot of grit and determination has gone into it, but a lot of luck in getting that phone call.
And what year in school? What year in school were you when you got the phone call?
I was a freshman.
That was your first. Wow.
Or maybe going into maybe a sophomore year in possibly freshman, sophomore, and I started doing that. And I had a lot of friends who would work for what I don't know, maybe like $2.72 an hour at the library, right? And I would literally turn on my microphone, put some sound effects, and play around, and have, I'm telling you, the best time for an hour, and drive that CD or whatever it was at the time, to down to the heart of Clinton, and he would pay me. Yeah. And so I was like, this is kind of like this is what I want to be doing. And
you said that he said we're going to need to update these monthly. So was this essentially a monthly assignment for you for the remainder of your?
It was like a retainer essentially every month. Wow. Come up with new content, and so he tasked me to create the content, create the promo, and whatever special occasion or whatever the case may be. And my junior year, I did the study abroad program in New York City. So, which was an interesting time because it was just after 9/11, and the apartments that we had, or dorms or apartments that we had rented for that program were just really beside, and just south of ground zero. And at the time, I pitched to my professor, the professor of the program down in New York City. He said, "Look, you can get an internship." And I did. And I lasted like 3 days at this PR firm. I just couldn't, they wanted me to file things and then unfile them just to file them again. That was the assignment. I said, this makes no sense that you're asking me to essentially put things in a file cabinet and then take them out, scatter them on the floor, and then refile them. I have to write a paper at the end of the term for this. This is, you're literally asking me to do something for no reason. And so I went to the professor and I said, "Look, is there any way I could create a business in this and write the business plan, and And again, I'm deeply grateful that he said yes, and he kind of held my feet to the fire in terms of like, okay, I've got, he's got to be accountable to whatever he's assigning me as well. And that's what I spent. I spent that semester actually creating a business, getting the business account and so on and so forth. And I remember going down to the Citibank down all the way in, what is it, Bowling Green, and walking in to get a business account. Now I'm however old I was as a junior, and I walked in with all the paperwork that you need. And the man said to me, "No, you're too young to have a business account. We can't do business with you." And it was like one of the very many, challenges that I realized in life and running a business and owning a business. And so I actually remember taking that and continuing to walk on Wall Street. I was like, okay, well, maybe somebody will do business with me. And in the exact same stack of papers, I walked over and into the Bank of New York, and the manager walked over, shook my hand and said, we'd be delighted to earn your business. And so, and maybe this is that occasion, but I've been waiting about 20 years to tell that story on some media capacity. You can take a guess which bank I don't have the business account with.
Right.
At this point.
Right. It's easy to hear your story and think, well, a natural path is to explore a career in radio, or you get a taste of creating some form of advertising, pursue a career in advertising. You've essentially created your own. Was there an entrepreneurial spirit inside of you that once you got a taste of doing your own thing, that's what you wanted to do versus taking a more?
I didn't think there was. I didn't think there was. I didn't know it. Now, my father owns an unrelated audio analysis firm. And so he just worked from home in some capacity, an entrepreneur, and he examines audio for evidence and different purposes. And so I went to Hamilton actually as the youngest of 4 children. I thought I was going to honor my father's profession by taking over the business, taking over the audio enhancement business, because frankly, none of his other children, my siblings, were interested. And I thought I was going to go down that path. But I attempted to take physics classes and all kinds of different things. And, okay, I'm going to be an audio engineer like my dad. And it just didn't work out, right? I couldn't handle it. I found in the radio station, and this is one of the things that I'm so appreciative of Hamilton in kind of having a leadership role in the radio station. A small community, small school allows you to have the opportunities that Hamilton does, right? And the opportunity to have confidence. You're not in a lecture hall of 400 people. You're in a small classroom of 18. So you kind of need to develop your own voice. Otherwise, the professor's going to know. It allowed me to develop my skills at the radio station in a way that I don't think a larger organization would have allowed it. And that's where, I must say my appreciation for Hamilton is allowing the opportunities. And if I had any bit of advice, I would tell anyone who's considering or a current student, just do it. Not to all go Nike on everyone, but just do it. Go for it. Become a part of that TAP group or that whatever group or whatever, because, that opportunity is, that's what makes Hamilton special, in my opinion.
Yeah. I remember, really appreciating, far too late, but really appreciating just how much free reign you would have in that studio. Yeah. I had friends that went to larger universities that also got involved in college radio, and it was like a job. There were rules, there were bosses, you had a very strict sort of way that you had to operate. And I would, come from WHCL where, as a board member as well, I had a key to the place and could come and go as I wanted and use the office. And, as you said, make long distance phone calls if you wanted to and make it what you could, and you had that sort of that free reign at a place like that. And I think that's true in a lot of different endeavors on campus.
It is. So, yeah, it was such a special place. And I don't know if it's the same right now, right? In terms of that free reign, I
know Jonathan Meade, who runs the station now, is listening to this and be like, shut up. No, they don't have free reign. But so the Bank of New York gives you the loan. You're a young man.
It wasn't a loan. I've never taken a loan. I've never taken
a business. Excuse me, a business account.
It was a business account, and so I was able to actually do business legally, right? I mean, I was essentially, that first account, he was just pretty much paying me, but then I started the idea because then I was nearing graduation, and my parents, rightfully were like, okay, now what? I remember that now what conversation. And I said, give me 2 years, just 2 years. Let me live in your basement and just give me 2 years to see if I could make something of this. I have a degree in economics. I have minor mathematics. I'm sure I can go down to Morgan Stanley or one of these and pitch them on the idea of hiring me as a low level something. I'm sure I'd be able to get in somewhere. That's what I told my parents. And I said, give me 2 years. And I lived in their basement, and which was like living in a fully stocked deli, because you would come up, you come up like for the rotisserie chicken that mom had out for dinner. And it was fabulous. It was great. And I vividly remember that actually the scariest moment in my career, it's funny calling it a career, was when I graduated and I had set up my desk. I had like this makeshift desk. I had my pencils all sharpened. I had the notebook. I had my cell phone. I didn't have a phone other than a cell phone at the time. And I had my computer, and I had the pens over there. I had Post-it notes. You need a Post-it notes. And then it was dead silent. And I remember saying to myself, okay, what happens now? Like, actually, what happens now? Like, I've got all this stuff that Staples sold me. Now what happens? Is the phone going to ring? And I remember having like a heart palpitation at that moment, because it's like, I had no idea what to do. I really had no idea. So I took a couple of deep breaths, and I went over to Barnes and Noble, and I went to the library, and I got every book on sales, every single book. I read every book on sales, every book that I can get myself on, to understand how I could do this. And then I literally, and this is part of what I attribute to the Hamilton experience, is I had the chutzpah to borrow, I don't even think he knew it, my father's briefcase. I didn't have one of my own. And I walked door to door in our surrounding towns with an empty briefcase. Now, I had nothing in that briefcase. And I walked, and I didn't have appointments for any of these places. And I vividly remember walking into every car dealership in the tri-state area, literally. And I would put, as a prop, Dave, the briefcase on the owner's desk to show him or her, I have a briefcase. So this is worth your time because I have a briefcase. I didn't have anything in the briefcase. It was a total bluff. And I told them, this is why you need on-hold messaging for your Cadillac dealership. Let me explain to you why we're going to help you out. And when I walked out, I remember walking out of Norris, Cadillac, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, GMC. And I walked out with a check in my hand. I sat in my car and could not stop laughing because I sold the salesman, right? Like, these people are notorious. And I just walked in it was a total bluff. And they were, until recently, actually a client for many, many, many years. They've changed ownership, and they were still a client. So,
wow.
So and so I did what I needed to do because I set that goal for myself, right? 2 years.
Yeah.
And you got to do something. The phone's not ringing. Who would ever, if you'd say, you can't just be in business by saying you're in business. And now you got to make something of it. And I went door to door, and I reached a low point when I actually walked into a funeral home mid-service. I reached a low point, and then I also had a moment in my car where I was like, okay, Justin, let's regroup. Let's consider our strategy here. And this is not going to, the funeral director is a little bit busy when he's wheeling a coffin in or out, right?
So you realize early on that you like doing this work when you start working for the Hamilton Inn. At what point did you realize that it was a viable business, that this idea of on hold?
It took over 2 years. It took about 2 years, 2.5 years to, and part of the craziness is that I stuck with it, I guess, because, one client in a very, I don't want to say low margin or low, ticket transaction is not going to sustain, a family one day.
Sure.
So it required, kind of me developing systems. It required me learning audio engineering beyond what I had taught myself previously. Right. So what would I do? I would go to the car dealership. I would sell Mr. or Mrs. Car Dealer on the idea of doing this. Then I would use my Hamilton skills and say, like, okay, I'm going to create your content. That is to say the audio, the script that your callers will hear, and then work with the client on getting that approved. Then voice it. Now I was the only voice, and so I had to voice it and put music and sound effects and all kinds of horns and other things to make it sound a lot of fun, and then deliver it and learn the technology aspect of how is this going to play on phone systems. And there was a learning curve on each of those. Then get paid, right? And which, if anybody listening runs a business, that part can often be the trickiest part of the entire equation, and often the most important. And that was the cycle. Fortunately, you advance the clock nearly 20 years. We have an amazing team. We have a few dozen people who support us we have a creative department, we have writers, we have a tech department, we have a business development team who's working on all kinds of things for our website, and strategies to garner relationships with, with phone system companies and so on and so forth. We have voice talent in male, female, British, Spanish, French, German. We work in a variety of different languages. And it's well beyond my wildest expectations. But perseverance and persistence. I don't know if there was ever a moment where I was like, this was an aha moment. Especially that first year. It was tough, getting kicked out of a number of, and I don't know if I would have the courage to walk into some of the places that I did back then. Interesting. So being as fearless as possible. And I don't know if you're a skier. I was a, avid skier in high school, college. And now with children, I easy does it. I'm a skier, but easy does it. I just want to get down without getting hurt. Easy does it. Let's, there's that black. Let's do the green. Let's do it. Let's kind of enjoy the curves. And so I feel like there was that fearless mentality back then where I simply had nothing to lose.
Wow. So what starts with one client at Hamilton Inn, and guess on how many clients you're servicing now?
We're nearing 15,000 clients, big and small. I mean, we've been so fortunate and blessed. And again, I don't take any of this for granted. But the mom and pop businesses are the bread and butter of our business. The heating air conditioning company, the dental office, the veterinary hospital that needed to talk about curbside, drop off and pick up during COVID, the urgent care facility that wanted to tell you what to do when you became ill during COVID or flu season or allergy season. We kind of had to switch gears during COVID, and I could touch on that in a moment, but we've also been fortunate. I remember this moment. I don't want to say it was an aha moment, but it was an interesting dinner conversation moment when I was living in my parents' basement, and I came up for dinner, of course, because it's like, you got to eat. Mom made probably rotisserie chicken or whatever was on sale or whatever. And how was your day, hon? Well, we just landed Ticketmaster and all their call centers. Would you mind passing the salad dressing, please? It was that kind of like, what do you mean? Well, 56 million callers are going to be going through our system starting next month. Mom, the ranch dressing would be fine. Thanks. And I think they were probably looking at each other like, is this for real? And I was like, yeah, somehow they trusted my arm. It was me, my pitch to help them strategize a system to flow their calls in a more effective and efficient way. And we developed a skill. Our company has developed a skill. It's not just sounding great, right? Mm-hmm. We learned over the years. We became business consultants. We became, when a veterinarian calls us, we know they're busy. Mm-hmm. We know they're tied up in a lot of things, but we work with so many veterinary hospitals. We know their business model on a deeper level than most businesses. So we can provide them with content that will generate additional revenue and improve the operation and make it more efficient. Sure. Beyond being, phone consultants in terms of like, this is how you should flow your calls for efficiency's sake and for the client experience.
Yeah, it's critical customer experience skill that it's critical for a business. And with that, there needs to be some deep understanding of branding, and what works for one type of business won't work for another. You talked about car dealers versus funeral homes versus something else. You got to sound different. You got to feel different. That experience for the user or the caller has got to be different.
Yeah, I mean, we were laughing a couple of weeks ago because we work in vastly, almost every industry you can imagine, truly every industry. And each time it impresses us, we're less and less impressed because we've seen it almost before. Last week, we had one of our studios, and we have 4 studios. One of our studios was working on the one project was for a whole group of, I think it was like 28 funeral homes in the Midwest. And then directly following was Las Vegas's largest and most reputable, apparently, gentlemen's club. And so we were just kind of like laughing that, like, the same voice artist is going to be heard in very different circumstances, if they have a phone number, they can probably use our service. And interestingly, when you say you're an expert in something, it's kind of funny. You often become one, and or at least in the eyes of the beholder there. And it became the case with us, like after a degree of experience, right? So when national companies like Coca-Cola, like the Hiltons or the Midas, when they need support, it's interesting because you would think, well, don't they have people in-house to do this, to figure this stuff out? And often those people don't know more or less about it than anyone else. And so they call on the experts, and we're often brought into the equation, to say like, okay, this is how we're going to help make your call experience a more positive one. You work really hard on your web experience, your social media experience, your TV ads are fantastic that you put out on the Super Bowl, but this is your phone experience. And we're going to help to provide your callers with a comparable and parallel experience to the one that you're pushing out in other mechanisms of media.
Yeah. I spent the bulk of my career at ad agencies, and we'd work with clients, and oftentimes we would try to get that deeper understanding of their customer. I've had plenty of clients over the years invite us to come sit in and listen in their call center, because that's where you truly, engaging with customers. And, the calls you get from a health insurance company to Dyson vacuums, very different calls, but in both cases, you get a real understanding of the experience. Now, oftentimes those are unhappy customers, and so you need to make it a positive experience. For what you do, it's almost, I think, a positive experience that you help create goes unnoticed, right? Most people only know if they have a bad experience. Do you get data? Do you get reporting back on how improvements you're making?
We did a lot of research, right? So we, part of what we do is we asked our clients, we did a survey about 5 years ago. We said, where do you see value in our service? Just so that we can kind of have some metrics here. And the number one response was the professional appearance that it offers, right? The impression that it provides to the callers. The number 2 was it educates callers about lesser known services or products, right? So when you call it Domino's, do you know everything on the Domino's menu? The answer, of course, is no, right? Do you know what that Domino's owner or that pizzeria, and we work with a lot of pizzerias, quick serves, and different types of businesses. Do you know what they want to sell you? We do. We know what they're looking to do in order to increase average ticket. So they're creatively including the different salads, the higher margin items that you may not be thinking about, to increase that $18 order into a $22 order or $21 order, or even by 50 cents would mean a great deal to a busy pizzeria. And the third reason, shockingly to us, was to reduce hangups, right? So when you're calling on your cell phone, you get put on hold and there's nothing. Often that silence, you feel like you've been hung up, or you'll just get frustrated. It psychologically triples the time and you're like, oh, forget it. I'm just going to call another heating air conditioning company to get a quote for a new air conditioner or whatever the case may be. And so reducing hangups, we would have thought would be number one. But of course, we were shocked when we did the survey and the research in our client database. And that's what it told us. It is hard because it's kind of like a billboard, right? If you put a billboard up on the side of, the West Side Highway or elsewhere, what additional, it's a component of marketing. It's a component of the client experience and the customer experience. So do you know if Frank's Pizza, did they do an extra $250,000 of sales this year because they had an on hold program that was kind of an engaging one, and one that the customers really kind of responded to? Or is it because they did a Facebook promo or something? Sure. It's a little bit hard. We've also tested actually putting specific promotions on the on hold to increase, kind of the value to our clients.
Interesting. When you in your daily life make phone calls and get put on hold, and it's not one of your so it's not coming from your business, does it make your skin crawl when you hear something bad?
Not at all. One of the things that I when I speak with groups of children to high schoolers and college, students about career paths, and I always say, look, when you're going into college, one bit of advice: become really close friends with someone who's a year older than you. They will help guide you. It's kind of a uncharted territory for you, but not for them. And similarly, some of the closest relationships that I have developed over my career are actually with my competitors. I have a few dozen competitors who I've become very close with over the years. Every week I'm speaking to one or two of them just to check in. During Hurricane Katrina, we helped bail out the production studio that was in Louisiana. He was underwater, literally underwater. And, he knew that we had his back, and we'll just take we'll do his productions, whatever is needed. We wouldn't, charge or anything of that sort. We wouldn't take his client. He would trust me with anything, and I would trust him with anything. And similarly, if there was ever a problem, anything that we needed, we've got friends in the business. So, wow. It's one of those bits of advice that sounds counterintuitive. And I don't consider them enemies. I don't consider them even competitor. I mean, we are competitive in some. We don't think they compete with us. They think they compete with us.
There you go. There it is.
No, but they're some of my closest friends because they've, when you need a Spanish talent that is a Spanish talent, and there are all kinds of dialects of Spanish, is it Puerto Rican Spanish? It's all kinds of, and you just don't have it. And there's an urgent project that needs to be recorded today. Who are you going to call? Well, I've got a whole cell phone of people that I can reach out to and get the job taken care of, is my hope.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the voices. Do you have a roster of people that you work with? Is it freelance? Do you have people on staff? Where do the voices come from?
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of the above, right? So we have some of our regulars who are, essentially working on this full time. It's grueling work, right? And I used to be one of the voices. That's my humble beginnings. As we grew the company, it became apparent that spending time in one of the studios was not the most.
You're not running the business.
effective way for me to spend my time.
Yeah.
I was traveling, I was going to conferences and trade shows and all kinds of different things. And so we actually had like a little retirement party for my voice as one of the, you will no longer hear for domestic travel, say domestic. For international, I'm sorry, you said Dave. Is that correct? So, but the fortunate thing is we have people who are more experienced and more skilled than I am doing this type of thing all day, every day. And the ones who are less frequently needed, the French talent, for our, clientele, we don't have them on full time. I mean, it would, not be effective. But fortunately we have an awesome group of male, female, different talent that are so talented. And I mean, it's not just the voice talent, it's the entire team that we have assembled. And I say we, it was me, but I don't take that. I don't consider myself, I'm a part of the team, and they're just superstars. Mm-hmm. And I, if I were offering any bit of advice, get the best possible people in all positions. We have a tech support problem. I know we've got the best in the industry, They'll take care of it. If you've got a creative writing, we need to write something very crafty. And I know I came from Hamilton, and but just our head writer is 10 times better than I would ever be in terms of writing skills. And I'm so, so I've surrounded myself with people who are just, I think they complement my skills by exceeding many of them.
Do you miss cracking the mic yourself and doing it?
I sometimes get in there. I do, I have a way of creating some fun birthday, greetings. And so, and of course, I do leave kind of, I don't want to say the best, but one of the best happy birthday voicemails ever, right? Like when the movie phone guy calls and leaves you a voicemail, it's, but, it's funny. A lot of people are impressed with the voice and except if you share my last name, neither of my daughters will, roll their eyes. They'll just roll their eyes. And, but yeah, I mean, I don't miss it because I know how to, turn on the equipment and get in the studio. And I, when we have our weekly meetings, we all kind of have some fun.
And it's not, and speaking of the voice, it's not just the voice of God, the movie phone voice, right? I mean, for certain businesses, it requires a much different sound. And when before you had the roster of talent you have, how did you have to learn how to change?
So it's, being a voice artist is incredibly, it truly is. It's a talent. It's an artistic, so, and I've come to appreciate the skill, right? So if you were to record a 2-page script about a dermatology office or a dental office talking about dental implants and whatever today, and then let's say in a year and a half, one of they add on new technology, or they do something in the practice, or there's a new partner, or they've changed staff, or they changed the name of the practice, and you needed to re-record segments of that. Could you do it with the identical voice?
That's crazy.
And it's so amazing for me to even think that they could do it and you would never know. Our talent have become affiliated with, have become known for, or I should say our clients use them and they stay with them. It becomes part of their brand identity.
Right.
To have when you call a certain airline, when you call a hotel chain, you kind of expect a certain experience.
Sure,
Similar
part of the brand.
When you walk into a Marriott, room, you would expect the type of experience. And so we need to maintain that. So when we have talent, it's very seldom, but when we have talent leave us for health reasons or for whatever, personal reasons, we actually slip in. We always have a backup, like a sound alike. We'll let the client know after we provided them the audio and say, by the way, that person's no longer available.
Yeah.
But you have someone different.
Does the digitalization of our world, I mean, people are still making phone calls, but do you think about that, worry about the future of the business?
I think maybe like 8 years ago, we were really concerned about something called voice over IP. Voice over IP is going to ruin our business, because then instead of having traditional phone systems, right? So we have clients with 1,500 locations where we had a piece of hardware. We actually had a physical device at each of their locations. Voice over IP makes that obsolete, right? So it's out in the internet, it's out in the cloud somewhere. And we were concerned about that. 8 years ago or so, but it has turned into a positive for our business, because, ultimately what we realized is we're in not so much the telephone business, we're in the content creating business, and we create content. And as much respect as you have for your dentist, or as much respect as you have for your general physician, they don't know what they should be saying as much as you think they might, but they really need some support and guidance. And we come to their help in providing them that support and guidance. So whether it's being played on a traditional PBX phone system, or it's on a more modern voice over IP system, it's the contents that's of value, and it's keeping the content on brand and heading towards their mission of whether it's driving promotions, or if it's kind of continuing some sort of patient education, or whatever the case may be. And on that point, the last few years it's a strange silver lining with COVID. The phone came back is what there were articles written. You wouldn't go into your pizzeria. You would call them and do curbside. You would do all kinds of things of that sort. Your dental office wouldn't want you to come in until it was your turn. And so it was, call us when you're here and we will be in touch with you. So our service turned into more of a critical messaging service, where we were providing messages that were of health and safety for both the clients and for the employees of the particular business, rather than just marketing.
Interesting.
So we actually, in a strange way, and I don't gloat by any means, but we were needed more this year than we ever, or these last 2 years than we ever were, partly due to COVID.
Wow. Interesting. I talked to Mark Randolph, co-founder of Netflix, for the show a while back. We got into a conversation about the startup world, of course, and the chase for growth. And, I've always been interested in a business that launches successfully, and then in the chase for growth pivots to try 15 different things that gets them away from the core of what they were good at. It seems like you've been able to stay within your core, and the expansions you've made have been all connected to the core of your business. Have you ever thought about or think about, we're going to get into video, we're going to get into some other areas that aren't necessarily the sweet spot?
And as I mentioned, a number of our competitors are close friends of mine, and they, a number of them have chosen to diversify very significantly into website building, into, search engine optimization, into, all kinds of different scent marketing, believe it or not, when you walk into a business and you smell something. And, rightfully or wrongfully, the way I look at it is, when you want a really, really good steak, you go to a steakhouse. When you want good Chinese food, you go to a Chinese restaurant. You don't go to a diner for really good Chinese food or a good steak. And if you're doing a 1,000 things, that's fantastic, and my hat is off to you. But when you want to really excel in one particular area, it's important to have a granular understanding, a detailed understanding, and have a laser focus in getting it right. And so if you want a good website, we could create websites. We do it. We have a few dozen websites, and we do it all in-house. We have a whole team that does that. We could do that, but we don't. We don't sell that to the masses, because we want to be really good at the one thing you think of when you think of us. And we don't want to be just like okay at a lot of different things. Now, maybe in 20 years, we will bite those words. But for now, we seem to be, when businesses, big and small, and Earlier today, I was talking to a national furniture chain. Yesterday we were talking with a national, travel vacation club. When they think of like, how do we do this? We don't want them to think of going to the diner. We want them to think of going to the best possible source for that type of experience.
I couldn't agree more. It frustrates the hell out of me when I find a company or a brand I like, and then they go off and they start doing other things, and then it just ends up ruining the thing that they were good at in the first place. So I'm totally with you.
Yeah, we don't want to water down what that's been our mindset, and we've thought about it. We've looked very closely, believe it or not, into diversifying, because it's like, well, we've got this healthy client base. Why not sell them other stuff, right? And we just haven't done that, and I don't know if that's in the cards in the future. But for now, we like being good at what we're good at.
That'll be your kids' problem when they inherit the business, right? So as you think back to your early days at Hamilton, before you cracked that mic for the first time or stepped foot into the WHCL studios down in the basement there, anything you wish you had known?
Let's see. I wish I would have known to, and I try to do this as often as possible. And it's so hard because I think we came to Hamilton just as Mark Zuckerberg was creating this little thing called the Facebook, right? I mean, so I think that staying in touch with fellow Hamiltonians I would have done that. I remember having many sleepless nights with, certainly in the early age of our business, of my business. And, is this going to work? I wish I would have had just a letter somewhere where it's like, don't worry, just stick with it. Persistence. Just keep with it. Because I would sit in the back of an economics class at Benedict Hall. Am I saying, is that right?
Sounds right.
And I would literally on the side of, and I don't know if they use notebooks now, but on the one side of the notebook, I would just run numbers like, okay, if I got 10 clients, what if I expanded it to 15? And then the professor would, of course, call on me, and I had no idea what he was talking about. I was running numbers like, can I possibly make this work? I wish I had known, if you stick with it with grit and determination, and you're doing something that you absolutely love. I mean, truly, absolutely love. That feeling that I had when I went to the radio station, that I don't care what time it is. I don't care, I had the key because I was on the board, just that joy, that total, it's just fun is the feeling that I have on a Monday morning, because I get to do what I want to do, and I'm still doing it, and I'm surrounding myself with the people I want to be surrounding myself with, the best in what we do. And so it would have been nice to know, like, it'll be all right. Just stick with it. Just keep going one step in front of the next. When you get kicked out of one car dealership, just keep going to the next one. Maybe don't go to the funeral homes as much, but that's one of the things. And I'm deeply appreciative, as I said, of Hamilton's, the fostering the small community that fosters what you want to develop. Yeah. I could have done nothing. I could have just gone to class, taken exams, gotten a diploma and a cane, and gone home. But I really found a passion, and I developed that passion into a 20-year career.
All right, that's Justin Ginsberg, class of 2004. Justinio, back on the radio and on the podcast. Now, I got an email from Justin after we recorded that chat telling me that he woke up in a panic at 2 a.m. thinking about our conversation. And, rarely as a podcast host do you want your guest telling you that they woke up from a nightmare at 2 a.m. thinking about your show. But in this case, Justin was wishing he had shared more in response to the question, is there anything he wishes he had known? And what he said was, in thinking about it and apparently dreaming about it, that in his 20-year building of the business, not once has a client ever asked him where he went to college. It made him realize that in many ways, the name on the diploma and the GPA don't necessarily have a major impact on the success of his business. However, he does realize that Hamilton isn't who he is, but rather has allowed him to become who he is. That it played a significant role in the development of himself and certainly his business. He said he wished that the scary guy from Willy Wonka had pulled him aside in the first few weeks of Hamilton and whispered into his ears to use your time wisely, grow friendships, develop passions. He realizes now that had he known that it all would work out, he would have spent more time doing things like rooting on his roommate at swim competitions or exploring the Glen, and less time in the library. Common sentiment on the show. But either way, it worked out for Justin, and hopefully he can now sleep peacefully and not have nightmares about the show. My thanks to Justin for joining this week. If you're interested in having Justin help your business with your on-hold music, your on-hold messaging, your phone system in general, onhold.com. You have been listening to Had I Known on WHCL FM, Clinton, New York. HadIKnown.buzzsprout.com. Had I Known Show on social media. As always, my thanks to Dr. Michael Woods for supplying the music on the show. And, once again, Doc is going to play us out. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
Had I Known podcast show on your radio or take it to go.